Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Chris Shanks, and this is the Retro Renaissance podcast. A little later than usual, a little bit of a change than usual in the lineup. Tonight we were going to have Monkey Spaz, James 5000. We were going to do an Amiga show, but sadly he couldn't make it. He's the sickest man in history. He's always ill. And then also Tom had some kind of issue, so he couldn't make it. So I'm very glad to tell you, in substitution for those people, we have the Wonder Subs, fresh legs themselves, JL76 Gaming and Novabug. How are you, boys?
Hi, Chris. I'm down here.
How you doing, Chris? You alright?
Yeah, good, thank you. So the Scotsman with the Hotsman is JL76 Gaming, John, who does his own show here on Retro Unlimited Network, does Desert Island Discs, which I've been on in the past. Desert Island Games, is it?
Yeah.
Sorry, I always call it discs. I suppose they could be discs.
It's dig.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. They could be disc or cartridge, yeah.
Like to call it dig.
Dig, not did.
Yeah.
Dig.
Or dick, if it's Desert Island Carts. So, you also have your own YouTube channel, don't you? Tell us a little bit about that, John.
Yeah, GL76 Gaming, and it's just really retro nonsense. Mostly gameplays, some other shit, really. Do lots of Mega Drive, PlayStation, that's my main things, and racing games.
Awesome. And Chris, Novabug, tell us about yourself, my friend, and what your channel's all about.
Well, mostly it goes back to Amstrad, and it's just Amstrad CPC and the ill-fated Amstrad GX4000, as you guys are fully well aware.
This is the one that looks a little bit like a ship off of Star Trek, isn't it?
It does, yeah. It looks like some sort of model they cast for Star Trek and then abandoned it and thought, man, that was no good. So they gave the design to Alan Sugar and he released it as an 8-bit console.
There we are. Ill-fated, perhaps, ill-fated. I did read his book, and he was saying how he came across most of these ideas by whenever he went to New York, he used to go to Sears, or whenever he went to Japan, he would go into all the big shops there and see what was hot, what was coming out, and then he'd copy the idea and bring out his own thing. So, as a result,
they always...
He did all right in the end, I think. Although some of his stuff was way before his time, like he had an email phone and stuff like this in, years and years ago. Nowadays, you couldn't think of not having email on your phone. Well, he did it maybe 10 years too early.
I think Sugar really wanted to do everything on such a budget, and he succeeded with the 464. The 464 was a big hit considering the shoestring budget it was made on, and the fact that it went toe to toe with the C64 was quite impressive. And then, of course, he ended up buying Clive's company.
Yes.
Because, to sort of, well, if you can't beat them, sort of buy them out.
You're fired.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Clive made a mistake with that stupid electric car thing, didn't he? So.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he was given the chance to bow out gracefully, and he managed it.
Yeah, he did.
So, this week we're going to be talking about something which I know John's particularly keen on, is the point-and-click adventures, or graphic adventures, as they're sometimes known as.
Or text adventures.
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to go that far back, we're not going to start messing around with muds and things like that, although we could. Maybe one week we will do that, but I'm going to stick purely to the point-and-click graphical side of things this week. So, by point and click, we mean, of course, not Doom, where you point and click at a monster to kill it, but rather where you're set as a character in a world and you point and click to move, perhaps find an object, make that interact with another object, with your ultimate goal being some kind of quest or mission or something along those lines. And perhaps the very first of this kind was were bought out by the firm known as Online Systems, later to become Sierra Online, who I do believe Metal Jesus Rocks used to work for.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. Yep, him and Drunken Master Paul both used to be Sierra Online employees.
Well, there you go, I didn't know that.
And of course, the first one really was in the year of my birth, 1984, King's Quest. So
Yes.
King's Quest being a massive series. I think it went up to 8 titles plus spin-offs. And you used to go around Castle Daventry and this world as a knight, or a king in fact, to try and solve the problem that was cursing the kingdom. And so you would go on an epic quest as the king and try and save it all. And it was actually the co-founder, Roberta Williams, who designed of Sierra Online, who did all of them, designed all of the games from start to finish, right from the top it came. And eventually they did flop down a bit, but they will always be remembered because the character, it was very much a right and wrong. There was no grey in it. So you were always on the side which is right and fair. So King Graham, Queen, I think it's Valiance or Valenice or something, Prince Alexander or Connor, and all to serve the greater good. Very good. So in the first game you played as Graham, who was a knight of the realm during the first game, and then he became the king from its finale onwards. And so that was basically the first one. Of course, Sierra Online went to have some other great games. Just looking up some now. So you had stuff like was it Sierra Online who brought out? No, that was LucasArts. Perhaps LucasArts is probably the most famous for this with the Monkey Island series, but they did bring out a lot of others. Oh, sorry, Sierra Online. What I was looking for was Manhunter New York. So they did stuff like that, and Police Nauts by Hideo Kojima, very famous.
Metal Gear Solid fame.
Yeah, indeed. Maniac Mansion, which later went on to do Day of the Tentacle.
Yes.
There was also Full Throttle, and the game which was included with Full Throttle, which often gets forgotten, The Dig.
Oh yeah.
I remember
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the name. Yeah.
Which is very cool. Space Quest, and also did bits. Sam and Max. Phantasmagoria, the Broken Sword series, Beneath the Steel Sky, Blade Runner, Grim Fandango, perhaps maybe one of the best of all time and one of the most underrated Sega CD games, Snatcher.
Oh yeah, Snatcher is great.
And then really got set forward with Myst in 1993, which sold 6 million copies and became one of the best-selling PC games of all times. And in fact, there was a sequel to Myst, which wasn't released by them, called Pissed, which was just a set of screenshots taken from the game with people graffitiing all over it, saying, "How the fuck do you expect me to solve this?" So,
wasn't Riven? Is it Riven?
Riven is the official sequel, yes.
Yeah, I remember having a copy of Myst, acquiring one. And I could not for the life of me get it to run because I had a very poor PC at the time, and it just sat there on the shelf. And I scratched my head and wondered, I wonder what that would like to be played. Never played it.
Well, I still have Riven on the PlayStation 1, and I'm still yet to play it through. So when I get my my second PS3 up in the bedroom, it's certainly one that I'm going to be playing up there. So Yeah, Myst followed on. And it wasn't just those games, but if you think of other games like Metroid Prime from Nintendo, it's kind of a first-person point-and-click, very much like Myst. But with very, very little combat, realistically, in Metroid Prime. It is all about exploration and that kind of stuff. So Sierra Online was shut down really in 1999 and LucasArts 2000. Grim Fandango, sadly, was only 100,000 copies in 1998. Very funny game. Some of my more memorable ones were Discworld 1 and 2, which I used to play on the PlayStation 1. And in fact, missed out yesterday at the car boot very, very quickly. But now it seems that we have a resurgence, if you will, with Telltale Games. And now we have things like Back to the Future, the game, The Walking Dead, the video game, the Monkey Island revival, which has just come about.
Yep.
All sorts of stuff going on. So it's really coming back to the fore now, and it really is becoming a more, I guess you could say, a casual kind of game. Now, it's not because, you can pick it up and put it down. Professor Layton, of course, on the DS is also helping things. So, John, what was your first sort of experience with point-and-click adventures?
With point-and-click ones, I reckon my first one would have been... I think it might have been Police Quest, another Sierra game.
Okay.
Police Quest.
Did they all have to have quests in them? Was that the rule?
No, well, a lot of them did, but obviously Leisure Suit Larry didn't. But yeah, a lot of them had.
Of course, we missed out Leisure Suit Larry. How absolutely disgusting.
It was.
It was, yes.
Yeah, Police Quest was basically based on a character called Sonny Bond. It ran for 3 games, and then you get Police Quest 4, which was a different character, and then that moved on to the games that were called SWAT. I don't know if you remember those games.
Yes,
SWAT.
I do.
Yeah.
So, was that your favourite?
It's in the top 3, I would say.
Okay.
Leisure Suit Larry, probably the second, and Monkey Island first.
So you're a big Monkey Island fan. So could you tell me how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
I can tell you the answer to that. A woodchuck would chuck no amount of wood, because a woodchuck doesn't chuck wood.
Yeah, okay, smart ass.
I was about to say, congratulations.
And how about yourself, Chris? What sort of memories do point-and-click adventures evoke for you?
Because I was sort of embroiled in the CPC, it was, the first one, you touched on it in your intro, was graphic adventures, text-based adventures, but which is kind of a sort of a similar thing. But I remember actually making my own ones from a program called the Graphic Adventure Creator, which was made by Incentive Software, I believe, for the 8-bits and the BBC Micro. And it was a long-winded thing, but you could program your own adventure and storyline into it, and change variables and work out different verbs, make spells into it, and then you could play your own game. But it wouldn't actually surprise you, even though you'd already programmed it, because you'd think, oh, hang on a minute, how do I program that? So you'd sort of like end up killing yourself. But it was an interesting concept, and the graphic element of it was the fact that it also had a very basic, just a line and fill graphic editing program, just to create rooms and create caverns and stuff and pictures to assist your text adventures. So it was quite.
Okay.
It was an interesting. I'm not sure whether you can call it a game.
Did you create any stupid and I mean really stupid puzzles in it? You know, the kind that you'll never think of, and then you'll do on the off because you try it every. This is what I remember about point and click adventures. Is trying every fucking item with every item in the game to see if you can get stuff to work. Was there anything like that in your adventures, Chris?
You had sort of free reign to add items and the properties of what items do when you created them. So, for instance, you could come up with something stupid. If you had like a locked door, you could easily like create a key, and that key will open the door. Fair enough. But if you programmed it correctly, say bash door down with your boot, then that would work.
Okay.
So you had free reign. Obviously, the only limits you had were the constraints of the memory available. So you couldn't put too many variables and items and locations into it because you just fill up the memory. But it was definitely. I created a few adventures because what you would get in the Amstrad Action magazines were people that had written adventures into it, and they would put in the code and what they put into the adventure, and you could write their adventure into it and play their adventure, which was time consuming, but it was good.
I do remember having my Dragon 32 and typing out Dungeons and Dragons and saving it to tape, and it working first time, which nearly never happens. In fact, it was the only time I'd written out a program from the back of a magazine, Dragon News or whatever it was, that it worked. Every other time I had some kind of syntax error somewhere.
There was a lot of that going on, syntax errors. That word, seeing that word come up on that blue screen in yellow, go away.
Yeah, I remember typing out games from the front of inside Atari magazines, Atari 8C magazine, and I will never get one to work. There was always errors. Basically, the person that's typed it into the magazines probably had a typo.
That was normally something.
Yeah.
And it's the ones that had so much machine code that would just kill you, and one digit wrong would just screw the game up. So,
do you remember anything silly at all about it, John? Like perhaps the insult sword fight in Monkey Island or anything like that?
Oh, the Monkey Island game's hilarious. I think one of the funniest things I remember that's really, really, really stupid is in a game called Flight of the Amazon Queen. It's a very Monkey Island type game that came out in the mid-90s. Can't remember who made it, but there's just a bit where you pick up a stick and he makes such a big deal of it. I've got the big stick. It's just a stick. You know, it's silly things like that that kind of appeals to my sense of humour.
So, did you did you ever play the Discworld games?
I did play them, but I never finished them. I played them on the Amiga, I think.
If you're a fan of Discworld, you really should check them out because it plays in perfectly Discworld 1 and 2. Not so much Discworld Noir, but in Discworld and Discworld 2 you play as Rincewind. Yeah.
Do you know what?
Hapless wizard.
Oh yeah. I think no, it's okay. I was going to say I have completed it, but I'm thinking of something else.
Here we go. We've got some comments in now, so I'm just going to bring them up. Harry Yak has made some some vile comments. So let's see what we've got here.
Filter him.
We will filter him. Don't worry, dear viewers. We know what it's like. It's all too difficult. Let's have a quick look. Where are we? There. I'm just bringing him up now. But the Discworld stuff, where I think in the third act of the second one you actually play as the Grim Reaper, which is just hilarious, really. Harry, I'm sad to say, my friend, that I cannot find your comment. Where it says comments, it just says comments underneath it. So do let me know on Facebook, and I will say them out because I want that cheese sandwich that you've offered me. So, but yeah, I mean, here's the thing about these point-and-click adventure games: the humour in it was just so perfect. Do you know what I mean? It was almost like watching a Monty Python sketch. In fact, Monty Python would have worked very well as a point-and-click adventure. Do you know if they ever had one of those, John?
I'll have to Wikipedia that. I don't think so, but stranger things have happened.
But it does. Do you know what I mean when I say that? That the comedy and the timing is perfect.
Yeah. This is exactly why I like them. This is why it appeals to me, because I've got a silly sense of humour anyway, and these games the sense of humour is really stupid. It's like, almost like, Reeves and Mortimer in a way. Like, it's just, some people don't get it. You either get it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I get it. It appeals to me, definitely, especially on Monkey Island.
It's just silliness, isn't it? Did you play the HD version of Monkey Island? So did you play it through again when that came out? Excuse me.
I'm doing I found out you should say that. I'm not doing a cheap plug, but I'm actually doing a walkthrough on my channel right now of the HD. Well,
I was setting you up for that, but there we go. Right.
It's very convenient.
It is convenient. But I'm like the same. It's not just with games, but with TV shows and things that I like. I create all the things that I like at least once a year. I play Monkey Island probably once a year. I watch Red Dwarf once a year, things like that. I always do the same shit.
Do you read a certain book once a year?
Yeah.
What's the book?
Escort's Reader's Life.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that is an old one.
Trainspotting.
Good man. No, I try and do that myself. We were talking about this on Desert Island Games. That's a book that we both love very much. So that's interesting that you have this thing where you go back to Monkey Island every year. And do you think that Guybrush Threepwood, do you think he's... I mean, I was playing a game the other day, a little a dungeon crawler with rogue rules. So, like, you go forward a square, they go forward a square or whatever. And the first thing I came across was Threepwood's helm, which was a pan that I could put on my head. So his influence is wide and far, obviously, Guybrush Threepwood. Do you think he's kind of? Do you think if he was real, do you think he'd like the success? Or how do you think he'd take to it?
Yeah, I think he would love it. I think it would go to his head, because you see in the start of Monkey Island 2, it starts off with him telling his tales of how he beat LeChuck in the first game. And he's telling it to this group of pirates around a campfire, and they keep saying, "Shut up, Guybrush, we're bored of it." So yeah.
And which of the games is it where you have to get LeChuck's beard stuck in a slot machine? I think it was, or something.
That's the second one. That you have to make a voodoo doll.
That's right.
Of LeChuck. So the other thing you have to do is you get a coin to fall out of the kind of Coke machine, or a grog machine as it's called, and when he bends over, you steal his knickers.
It's a funny old one, isn't it? I mean, Chris, there's a comment here for you from Harry Ack. He said there was a distinct lack of point and click on the Amstrad CPC.
There was, yeah. There wasn't much.
Did you get into it on the PS1 or perhaps the Saturn, dare I say, or something like that?
Well, strangely enough, the one. I mean, I was aware of Monkey Island, but I never got an opportunity to play it. And a few of the other titles you've actually mentioned already, Chris, I was aware of them, but again, it's come to a kind of not actually coming across them. But one I did, which I think came out same time as Myst, was The Seventh Guest.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I love that. Yeah, I did spend many hours playing through that. I found it like it was almost like the sort of video game version of Cluedo, and then mix that with an old. Do you remember an old sort of pseudo horror program that we had at school called Dark Towers?
Oh yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And because that was all about ghostly nights and spectres in this castle and stuff.
It was around the same time. It used to be on. I remember you used to have that, and then you used to have Round the Twist as well.
Round the Twist came after. Yeah, and it's on. I think it was on when it was at Channel 4. They used to do them educational programs. It was on the same time as that, and that stupid bleeding wordy thing. Another program. Remember
15 to 1?
No, it was like a floating vacuum cleaner, wasn't it? Called Wordy, something like that.
Oh yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
I digress. No, Seventh Guest. Because the FMV in it was at the time for me was quite amazing to look at, and the effects they put in with the ghosts and the twist at the end. If you haven't played it, I will not say what it is. But there's a nice twist at the end. Is that was for your listeners' benefit, of course. But the twist at the end is quite surprising when you first play the game. So, but it was something it was one of the few point and clicks that I really, really did enjoy, and I think probably even with the horror survival games, it's still probably my favourite sort of horror themed game.
Do you think that they had this is to both of you? Do you think that the point and click adventures had a positive effect on those horror survival games, which we covered last week actually with Aidan? We were talking mostly about Resident Evil and Silent Hill and stuff like that. Do you think that to me the elements of puzzle solving and stuff are quite obviously there in those games, and the fact that you have to pick up something and go halfway back through the fucking mansion or whatever to use it and then go back again, certainly you can see their roots in the point and click adventure, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's definitely influenced by that in a big way, I would say.
I'd say they were as well. They take that sort of the gamer's decision. That is a very key part of it, and how you would react. And I think, especially with some of the earlier survival horrors, what they would take from games like Seventh Guest would be not only surprise, but what you don't see, especially Silent Hill.
Yeah, I mean the stuff in Silent Hill, the puzzles, if you will, were really cerebral. They really got you thinking the way that you should be. And I think you had to get into a certain mindset to do one of these games. Would you agree, John? You've obviously done a lot of these in the past, but I knew for Discworld I'd have to think stupid, and I'd have to think to the Discworld books like, okay, what would the librarian do here? I can't call him a monkey because he's going to punch me out. So stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Because he's an orangutan, not a monkey, obviously.
Once you've played a couple of these games, you have to have that mindset. You have to think of the stupidest thing, and it might just work.
Do you think that we could do with a bit more of that nowadays, with all these hyper-realistic Call of Duty bullshit?
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it's a lost art. It's definitely a lost art.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm glad Telltale Games are doing what they're doing, but it's still not quite the same. Like, I find playing The Walking Dead Telltale's game is just like, it's more of a interactive story than a point and click adventure.
I know what you mean. We are all about the narrative nowadays in video games, but I thought that their Back to the Future one was a lot better, personally. I know that there's a lot of fans out there for the Walking Dead one, but I think that's more about the franchise than anything else. Yeah.
I mean, I've played the first part of the Back to the Future, and there does seem to be more puzzles than what there is in The Walking Dead.
That game sounds very appealing. I'm going to have to track that down, I think.
You can get it on iOS, Android, or I think it's on PlayStation.
Yeah, it's on PSN, and I think it might even be on my Xbox. You can get it on there. But it's and PC, of course. But it's very, very clever the way that Telltale are doing things now. They're taking these franchises and they're doing some awesome stuff with it. You know, They're not doing what Michael Bay does, but that's a different story. Fucking give me back my childhood, you bastard. Right, anyway. But yeah, I mean, the if you haven't seen these the Telltale games, do check them out, because people absolutely rave about them, and quite rightly so. The Walking Dead is very much a narrative game, but the Back to the Future one's perhaps more of an homage to the older games, as it were.
There's one that came out, it was either last year or the year before. It's on Xbox Live. I think it's on PlayStation Network and it's on Steam. It's a game called The Cave, and I think it's been one of the guys that did Monkey Island. Might be wrong,
okay.
But basically it's a cross between a point-click adventure and a platform game. It's quite interesting. I played through the first hour of it or something. But you've got 8 different characters to pick from, and you pick 3 at a time, and then once you're done with those 3, you can start it again with different characters, so you get different perspectives on it.
I would expect to see a lot more from Telltale, because they're going to be bringing out Game of Thrones this year. Point-and-click jobby, so I would expect a lot from them, because the Game of Thrones game that came out previously wasn't particularly good.
I had an idea. Why don't Lego should do point and click?
Lego are so successful at the moment, aren't they?
They could burn their own money with that.
Lego Monkey Island, that would be good.
But
Lego
I do believe there's a game called Minecraft which does Lego quite well, doesn't it?
Yeah, where does that put Minecraft? Because Minecraft is well, you make it yourself, don't you? So it's kind of sort of crossing genres in a way, isn't it?
Yeah,
I suppose.
It's a very, I think, a complete open sandbox. Very fun. I think they've done the Sam and Max series quite well as well. So they've sort of rebought that out, and they've done the Tales of Monkey Island as well. Have you tried those out, the Tales of Monkey Island, John?
I've got them installed on my laptop, but I've not played them yet because I'm playing through my annual playthrough. So I'm going to play through that and then get.
Oh. Very good, very good. So I want to focus in on a game that was pretty up there actually, and that was Snatcher. So before I go into this too much, did either of you guys play through Snatcher at all, or have you played Snatcher?
I didn't, unfortunately.
Have you not? Oh, you need
I feel like I have, but I haven't.
Okay.
Because I've read so much about it, and a few of my friends on my other website say that it's an amazing game, and it's something that if I could pick a Mega CD up for, that it'd probably be that game.
Yeah, I mean, it was released on other platforms, but for some reason, the only non-Japanese version was on the Sega CD. It was actually released on PlayStation and Saturn.
Wasn't it on the PC Engine, Turbo Giro? Was it on there?
Yes, it was. It was on the PC Engine, but it was on the CD-ROM.
That's right. Yeah. So that's extremely rare.
That will explain why I've not played it, because I've never imported Japanese games or anything. So.
No. But like I say, if the opportunity came up for it, say for a Mega CD, then I would definitely get it.
It was released here in December 1994, so when a young Chris Shanks was only 10 years old, coming up to his 11th birthday, and he had to choose between a Mega CD or a SNES. Perhaps correctly, he chose a SNES. So I didn't get to play until quite recently, which is a shame, because for me, it's very cyberpunk based.
It is, yeah.
And it was the second video game written and directed by Hideo Kojima after he wrote the original Metal Gear for the MSX2. So, it revolves around an investigator named Gillian Seed, assigned to investigate a breach of bioroids known as Snatchers, who are killing humans and taking their place in society. Obviously, from that, you should be able to tell that it picks up a lot from Blade Runner and Wicked City, Akira and Terminator, all these kind of post-punk, kind of cyberpunky kind of themes. So it's all in the first person. You have a menu-based interface, and you can look, investigate, talk, ask and move and all this kind of stuff. So unlike other games like Monkey Island and Discworld, where you could point where to put the person, you could just see it. So there are points in the game where you have to do like shooting bits, and you use a 3x3 grid, which the player can target to fire at enemies, and there you have like a little training program you can use as well. But it's a very cool, very progressive storyline, very Japanese. Which is strange because it wasn't released on the Mega CD or the Sega CD in Japan, but on all the other releases it was only released in Japan. So it's a very strange thing, really. And it was released on the PC on 5.25-inch disc in Japan. Good luck getting that. And it was a localization for the Sega CD, really. So they ported it over to the Sega CD and localized it into English. So, and the Snatchers were redesigned as well a little bit so that they didn't look like the Terminator robots, so that Konami didn't get sued. But it is one of the highest scoring games of all time. So on aggregate, it gets roughly a 9.5 out of 10. And it's had radio plays about it, all sorts of stuff. And the Police Noughts also is another one that's thought to be that kind of same sort of thing. Now that was a bit more out there, and I think it's more of like an interactive movie thing, so not as much. But Snatcher is definitely one that people should check out. I don't want to give away too much about it, but the story is just amazing. The stuff that you do in it is just fantastic, and if you like any kind of manga or anime or anything like that, you should really check it out. It's really heavily Japanese styled and just a fantastic thing to watch and play. And it is, although we talk about that these games maybe lead you down the story path too much, it is one of those games where you do feel like you're taking a role in the story. So yeah, I mean, that's me harping on about my favourite game. John, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about why Monkey Island's so great.
Well, I mean, I touched on it earlier on, the humour. The humour's very well written. It appeals to my sense of humour. It's got cracking puzzles. I mean, I think out of the whole, there's 4 games, and then there was the Tales. I think out of the whole series, the second one's my favourite, Monkey Island 2. The puzzles in it are very clever and sometimes very funny, and it's just like we said earlier on as well. You'd have to be mad to think of some of the puzzles they came up with and things that you had to do.
How often did you cheat on it?
The first couple of times. Only when I was really stuck.
Okay. So what's your favourite bit in all of the Monkey Island games?
Let me think. I think it would be, humour-wise, it would be a bit where you're talking to a guy called Stan in Monkey Island 2. Stan in the first game, he's a used ship salesman. In the second one, he's a used coffin salesman. So there's a bit in the second game where you lock him inside a coffin. You basically just steal a key from behind the desk. You you kind of pretend you want to buy a coffin, so you get them to jump in it, just to try it out for size, and then you get some hammer and nails and you close it shut, and you just hear all these little voices coming out of the coffin saying, yeah, you are going to let me out, aren't you? You know, things like that.
John, is there any? You were talking about the game there from earlier. What's the standout moment there?
From.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry, not John. Chris. Sorry, the standout moment from your point and click, which I can't remember the name of.
Seventh guest.
Seventh guest. Sorry, yes. What's the standout moment there from that?
It's definitely the end, which involves. It was kind of a plot twist where, if you look, it's one of them classics where if you look back at the game and your actions and what's been said, you could have sort of seen it coming, but you don't realise it. It's one of those M. Night Shyamalan moments, you know. But I think the thing that stood out really was the amount of pre-rendered 3D in it was a lot of it, and it just seemed to be vastly different from anything I'd played at the time. And also it's got this quite complex backstory. I can't remember the name of because there's a voice I think you think it's the devil, but it's not. It's a voice always talking to you, and there's leaving notes around the mansion. Henry something, I can't remember. And that's quite chilling, because you're sort of unnerving, and you're trying to obviously work out the puzzles as you're going around, and you're seeing these very strange flashbacks and ghostly apparitions telling you different convoluted things. So it's quite a complex thing to work through, but it's extremely enjoyable, and I think probably it was just very different to anything that I was playing at the time. Probably the standout. Did
you play the sequel, Chris W? The 11th Hour?
11th Hour, yeah. I didn't know. I didn't manage to get around to it. I was moving on to other things. But
these are games that obviously we'd all recommend to anybody listening out there.
Yes.
I'd definitely recommend Seventh Guest.
Oh yeah, I'll back that up. The Seventh Guest was absolutely brilliant, and it's quite. When I was quite young when I played it, so I found it quite scary.
Yeah, well, me too, John.
Yeah.
So it's the same. I think going back to what Chris was saying about Snatcher as well, even though obviously that was done with stylized graphics instead of FMV, it was when I first, obviously I said I never played it, but when I saw it, screenshots of it and videos of it in the early days, I was quite turned off by how graphic it seemed. I think that's. Did you understand that? It seemed very dark.
Yeah.
But that that made me sort of like, I still want to play it.
Good. So there we are. 3 rather good suggestions for you all to check out. And in fact, there are a series left. I would hesitate though to say don't try Discord Noir. It's not nearly as funny or as much fun as the first 2. So that's what I'd give it. That's what I'd say anyway. Did you guys? What are your? Are you going to be checking out future point and click games?
I will always try point and click games that come out. It's between that and racing is my 2 favourite genres without a doubt. So that's why when I heard of The Cave, I immediately downloaded it when I heard of it. Yeah.
I think if I get a solid recommendation, I'll always check something out, no matter what the genre. Normally, it's not. I'll be frank. It's not my favourite genre, but if it's done well, I'll always give it a look. And
do you ever feel guilty about not going back and playing more of these, Chris? Because I know John, obviously it's your thing. But I always feel guilty that I've never gone back and finished Monkey Island 3, or I've never really given Discworld Noir the fair shot that it deserves. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, sure. Like I've always said, I wish I played Snatcher back in the day, and Monkey Island is another one, which I completely missed the boat on that. And after the Monkey Island frenzy had died down of a sense, I looked back on it and thought, oh, that would have been excellent to play. It just sounds hilarious. Like you said, like an interactive comedy sketch almost, or a drama sketch.
Yeah, it is. It's perfect Monty Python humour in Monkey Island. Do you not think, John? I know I keep on making that analogy, but it's that kind of slapstick, stupid humour. You know, where you're almost waiting for the protagonist to get the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah. There's a particularly funny part which I wish I had mentioned when you asked me earlier on about my favourite part of Monkey Island. Actually, there's a bit in the first Monkey Island where you're doing this task called the Free Trials, and you need to steal this statue from the governor, and you just go in. You don't see what's happening. You just Guybrush goes behind a wall, and it's just all these words that come out, like he's doing all these ridiculous things, like tormenting a tremendous yak, not Harry Yak, but things like that, and you're desperate to see what's happening behind that wall, because all these ridiculous things are just coming up. Like, what the hell is he up to behind that wall? So,
do you find that perhaps games could do with a little bit more of that humour, that breaking of the fourth wall? I know in Discworld 1 and 2 they were forever just turning around. He was forever turning around to the camera and making these little sarcastic quips. That's a good idea, isn't it? Instead of just spending the last couple of hours trying to figure out that stupid puzzle, I could have just walked around here. But never mind, live and learn. That sort of thing. Do you think the gaming needs more of that? It needs more stupidity, more stupid comedy, more slapstick.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, there's a place for serious games. I mean, The Last of Us was a prime example. It's pretty serious, but you're right. There's not enough humour in games.
Yeah, I mean, zombies can be made humorous. I think they did that quite well in Shaun of the Dead. But
it's nice when they inject a little bit of insanity into especially other genres as well. And I think one that John might be familiar with, because you said you like your racers.
Yes. And
I think the sort of casual, sort of throwaway humour that they put in the Burnout series is quite fun, with the crash sequences. It's just unbelievable destruction, but no one's blinking an eyelid, and it's just, oh, well done, you managed to destroy millions of dollars worth of vehicles and cause absolute havoc, but not a single person's died. It's that sort of 18.
Or arrested.
Yeah. I like that. I do like that.
Yeah, I think there should be humour in every game, but then again, how would you do it? For example, Call of Duty, which I hate, but I don't see how you can bring humour into a war game unless it's kind of horror.
Well, I don't know, you could be shooting at someone with a bindi spot and say, I'll give you 50 points if you hit the bullseye. Things like that. I'm sure there are. I've got a friend who's a Marine, and he's had to do those kind of kill shots, and they have made jokes about stuff to lighten the mood and stuff, And there is, I think, if you look at Battlefield Bad Company, that does a very good job actually of putting humour into that genre.
I think in reality, it's obviously you need to do that, otherwise you would go insane, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Coming slightly off topic, but staying with the comedy thing, I always liked the rail shooters that had a little bit of slapstick in them. Obviously, it's not like full blown taking the piss comedy, but it's a little bit of slapstick in the way some of the people would fall down when they get shot. For instance, the Time Crisis series.
Oh yeah.
It's all a bit.
Do you remember the uppercut from Mortal Kombat? The little guy that came in. That thing.
Did you not say? I thought you said toasty.
Toasty or whoopsie or I don't know,
but that, of course, the original Mortal Kombat is kind of slapstick violence, isn't it? It's sort of. Of course, modern Mortal Kombats have just destroyed that sort of any sense of humour, because it's just too gory to tell anymore. So
it's one of those things, I think, where You know, people need humour, you know, and I think we take the games. There's a place for serious games, like you were saying with that, but I think there needs to be more humour. There needs to be more slapstick in these games nowadays. Yeah. Not every game should be about saving the world on a whim and looking like a badass as you walk away from an explosion. Yeah. Even RoboCop had humour in it, you know. It's
very dark humour.
We know it can be done with war games. I mean, look at Cannon Fodder. That was a funny game.
Fantastic.
That was war.
Absolutely fantastic. Cannon Fodder. War has never been so much fun.
I just think that these point and click adventures they have a lot to offer people, you know, in terms of that comedy. I think if you went back and played something like Grim Fandango now or Full Throttle, you'd just have a good time, you know. And I think to some extent we've become so immersed in gaming that we forget the comedy side of it, and we forget to have a little bit of fun, you know. And it becomes this thing where we must be immersed in a story and we must do this. That's fine, but remember why you're doing it, to have fun. You know, it's not the be all and end all.
So that's what it's all about for me. I just want to play a good game. I want to be challenged and I want to play a good game. It's probably why my favourite genre is the shoot 'em up, and not the first person shoot 'em up, just the general scrolling shoot 'em up. I love them.
You'll definitely be challenged by Monkey Island, because it is, if you've never played it before and you're not using the cheats, it is a very challenging game.
Oh, yeah, it is. And this was the final point before we finish today, was that perhaps these games do put people off, or used to. I think nowadays they're a little bit easier, it's fair to say, but they could put people off a lot. You know, so you could play the first 10 minutes and essentially get nowhere. Do you know what I mean? And you'd be so annoyed that you'd be like,
I certainly think they might, especially things like The Walking Dead, or what I've read about The Walking Dead, and they certainly opened the options and where you can go in the game. I think in early graphic adventures, I don't know about you guys, but I personally found them rather linear, because once you play through them a couple of times, it kind of doesn't change anymore.
Yes, that's a good point. It's
probably something like that turned me off the early games, and that's why, to my detest, I never got into things like Monkey Island. I was just going to say another one, but I'm not sure whether this counts as a point and click, but it certainly was unique, was the Dragon's Lair.
Of course. Which you could play by DVD, couldn't you, or video CD?
It was the first Laserdisc arcade cabinet, but they had problems with the cabinet getting knocked because it would just fuck the disc up. So, but I remember that it stood out, didn't it? Because it was
Dirk the Daring?
Dirk the Daring, yeah. And it stood out because it was that sort of interactive cartoon kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where you had to sort of split second make the jump. It wasn't exactly point and click, but it was in that kind of area.
And that kind of comedic.
Yeah. It definitely had that comedy element. It also got lots of sexual references in it as well, and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
It was funny at the time, but I don't think it transcends to now, because it was a very linear game. So, but it's a memorable game, certainly.
Yeah, no, it's that's one that I'd completely forgotten about. I've got to be honest with you. And you can actually get the re-release of that now on PS3 and stuff like that. What a fantastic game! Yeah, blimey. But that's another good one. That's a good point, Chris. Yeah. But yeah, did you have any mates, John, that maybe sort of, you know, threw their hands up and said, "Oh, it's a fucking shit game," at Monkey Island or whatever?
Any mates that thought that?
Yeah, or anybody who would kind of dismiss the genre because it was silly or time wasting, or...
No, I have to say most people I know from my childhood and growing up, and even now would love point and clicks. So no, I've never really came across that, but I think it's something that's lost on the younger generation.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we know this with the modern iOS games, don't we? They just anything that's a quick hit, and if something crap like Flappy Bird can be such a success, and we're all in trouble, aren't we?
Yes.
I wouldn't think it was that bad, Flappy Bird. I thought it was alright. Certainly when I get my phone, upgrade my HTC Wildfire with genuine Flappy Birds going up on eBay.
It's just a clone though, Chris, isn't it? It's a clone of a very old copter game.
Which I loved that copter game, it was so addictive.
But how old is it? And that's what Flappy Bird is. And
I remember playing that 10, 15 years ago.
Exactly.
Easily, yeah.
Exactly. But I think what it is what annoys me about that is yes, it's fun for limited, but is it really a game for gamers? Really? It's by far and away nothing like we've been discussing today.
See, you've got a different breed of gamers, if you like. There's gamers like us, and there's gamers like your wife. But my wife, for example, plays lots of games on her phone.
Yeah,
she's not a gamer.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Mine too, but she does she is partial to a bit of Mario.
Well, so is mine, to be fair. Yeah.
She didn't realise. She doesn't pay attention to a lot of stuff I do anyway. But she didn't realise that I had Mario Brothers Wii U. I was sitting there playing it. She said, "Oh, it's Mario." I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's a new one." "Oh yeah." "Wow, I want to play this." I was like, "Bloody hell, what's the last Mario you played?" Turns out it was Mario Land 2.
Good times. Well, I think we're just about coming up on the end of our hour now. We've got a few minutes left. John, why don't you take a little time there to talk about what's going to be coming up on your channel, and also to plug that wonderful show that you do, Desert Island Games.
Right. Well, on my channel at the moment, I'm still trying to. I'm not doing it every single day, but I'm still trying to stick to a themed day every day. I might just not do it every single week, but I'm doing kind of Mega Drive Monday, PlayStation 2 Tuesday, Walkthrough Wednesday, where I'm doing my Monkey Island playthrough, Throwback Thursday, Friday Night Racing, Saturday, Soccer Saturday, Sunday Sport. So they're not going out every single day, but I'm just going to try and stick to them a couple of weeks.
A lot of alliteration there, didn't you?
Yeah, I like to. If the thing is, the problem is that nobody watches my playthroughs.
I don't find the playthroughs are that popular myself, actually. I only do 10-minute videos and I get about a third of the hits on them. But never mind, those third of the hits, those 40 people or so, they're well worth it.
But the other thing I'm doing, obviously, is the show exec Monday nights on this same network, Desert Island Games. And my next guest is Chris W. here. He's going to be on the next one.
Fantastic. Hello. What time on Monday, John?
9 o'clock on Monday.
9 o'clock on Monday. So there's something for people to tune into and look forward to. Chris, apart from appearing on Desert Island Games, what are you looking to do in your channel?
Well, unlike John, I don't have a set structure. He's all much more organised than me. I just randomly chuck out videos, but I do have a couple coming up. I've got an unusual CPC game playthrough coming up called Croco Magneto, which is a very odd game, which I don't think many of you might have heard of.
No.
But it's an interesting thing because it's bloody so hard. I'm going to be chatting about the advertising of the GX4000, which I found hilarious at the time. That's coming up soon. And I'm doing a next instalment of my Arcade Memories sequence as well, which will be Arcade Memories 3.
Okay. For myself, in the next week, you can expect on my channel, Chrisini84, you can expect to see a week of Game Boy games. So I have 5 Game Boy games ready up and run, including 4 Fight Zone, Pokemon Pinball, Shantae, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Fall of the Foot Clan, and Tracks. So some Game Boy exclusives there, which I don't like to do that. I was thinking about doing Game Boy for a while, but so many of them are ports. It's very difficult still, I found. And I really didn't want to do that, but it's what the majority of my collection here is. I must have about 100 Game Boy games. And that's what I'm really into, me handheld stuff. So, that's us in a nutshell tonight, folks. So, thanks once again for these two lovely people for bailing me out. They were going to be doing their own little recording tonight, but they were very gratefully received. And John, especially with his knowledge of point and clicks, that is fantastic.
Oh, I could talk for hours about point and clicks.
Unfortunately, we've only got 3 minutes. So.
I'm glad of that, because I think I've exhausted my knowledge on point and clicks.
But just to finish up there, check out 7th Hour, the Monkey Island series, the Discworld series, and Snatcher. Those games alone will do you miles in the point and click series there, according to us three non-experts. So I've been Chris Shank, and thank you everybody for listening. Thank you again to my guests. You've been listening to the Retro Renaissance podcast.